last time we chatted, I'm like, what would a parade be like in Buffalo? And he just basically said lit. It would be. It's going to be lit right now in Philadelphia. And joining us to talk about the reason why it's all going down in Philadelphia is one of our favorites from Thursday Night Football Prime Videos, Ryan Fitzpatrick, ladies and gentlemen. Hey. What's up, Fitz? How are you, Ryan?
Hey, guys. How are we doing today?
What's going on, brother?
You know what? The Licks shirt, it makes reference to the Swifties. And so I think that's why we're not going to show it.
Oh,
because
that
it
what
does. And anything anti-Swifty is not okay. So
Ryan has seen it, obviously. So yeah.
It's circulated everywhere.
It's going around.
So I drafted an anti-Swifty.
Well, I think he's just celebrating, you know.
But I can't. I might have to kick C.J. Gardner-Johnson off my fantasy team.
Well, you're in the lead. So I don't know if you want to do that.
Yeah, we drafted who's going to win. Who's going to win the parade, Ryan? You know,
the best shot I've seen so far is Blankenship up there, and they're all chanting Cooper, and he has to tell them, "I'm not Cooper."
Oh,
yeah!
Wow, he's the other half of the EWs.
He's the other one that plays in the secondary.
The EWs.
The EWs, yes.
Oh my God, Ryan Fitzpatrick giving us the 411 on what's going on with the parade. So, how is New Orleans for you? What's it like being you walking around New Orleans, man? What was that?
It was great. It was so much fun. So we, Amazon and our crew kind of had a presence out there. So it was a lot of fun just getting to hang out with not just kind of the on-screen people, but the behind-the-scene talent. Some people well, Muir and Spoon and Betsy and the gang. A couple activities here or there. And then it was like every single night, you try to get to bed by 11, midnight at the latest, and all of a sudden you walk into the hotel and there's somebody you hadn't seen forever in the lobby, and next thing you know, they're flicking the lights. It's 2:30, and you're like, oh my God. And then you get up and you do the same thing the next night. But that's Super Bowl. That's New Orleans. So I had a great time. It was awesome.
Who'd you run into? Who was your favorite run-in, Ryan?
Oh, my favorite run-in. I didn't get to see you, Rich, unfortunately.
I appreciate that.
I think you went to Rayos, did you not?
I did indeed. Yes, sir. I did on Thursday night.
So the pop-up at Rayos, which was in the warehouse district, two people that were next to me at the table next to me, Pete Davidson and Kevin Costner.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Well,
all right.
I didn't get to talk to Pete, but I was trying to find an in. How am I going to get to talk to Kevin?
Yes.
Or Mr. Costner, if you will.
Yes, sir.
Well, the appetizers come. As you know, they serve appetizers first, and then they're going to bring the entrees and everything else. So appetizers are coming. There's only two people at our table, so we're wondering if we could eat all of them or we have to leave some. But very good. Kevin Costner puts his coat on and gets up. I think he's leaving. This might be my only chance. What do I do? He starts walking towards me. Oh, my God, what do I do? I'm looking straight forward. He just kind of gives a little shoulder brush to me, to acknowledge, to say, hey, I know who you are. Nice seeing you. I'm stunned for 5 seconds, trying not to react, to play it cool. And then all my Amazon people are at the next table, just fist pumping and going crazy. Like, how do you know Kevin Costner? I don't. I love Tin Cup, but I don't know Kevin Costner. And so I thought that was it. I thought that was the interaction. But then it gets better, Rich. He sits back down at the table, and we make eye contact. I panic completely. Don't know what to do. So I just put up the peace sign. Just cool. A balloon. And he gives me the finger gun. He starts shooting me, like waist high from the hip, shooting me with the finger gun. My Super Bowl week is made. There's nothing else that can top that. I got finger gunned by Kevin Costner.
Finger gunned by Costner.
Well, I mean, and then the shoulder rub was obviously the gateway that started the whole thing off. And that was it? You never conversed with the man? You never conversed with him?
No. So then I, very, very slyly, got up and walked to the other side of the table as if I were going to cut a meatball, and turned around. Oh, hey, Kevin. And we got into about a 5-minute conversation.
Hey.
Wow, smooth.
Yeah, it was not smooth, but I thought it was smooth in my mind. But I think it's funny. The thing that you realize, yeah, I played, but also now the Thursday night football thing is people love watching football. So unfortunately, I'm unavoidable sometimes in terms of the pre-half post. So he knew who I was. I've been watching this guy since I was a kid. And the fact that he could acknowledge and knew who I was kind of cool. And we got to have a 5-minute conversation.
Did you
So
fanboy him at all? Ask him anything about his?
pretty one-sided, I'm not gonna lie.
Way
He
to
was
go,
talking
man.
to me and I was just taking it in,
Fantastic. Ryan,
Yeah.
this is your new lot in life, man. You know,
I don't know about
this is your new lot in life. Elliot Ness is going to know you. The governor of Montana is going to know you. Like this is going to happen, Ryan. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
I
John
love
Dutt,
it.
maybe. Yeah.
Did you give him any tips about who's going to win the Super Bowl? Did you give him one of those?
We didn't get that far.
How
We didn't
about
get that far. Unfortunately after that I had to brush him off. I had to talk to Joe Montana for a few one of those nights, just one of those nights.
That is so funny, man. Like you never know who's going to be next in this whole conversation line. I love it. Ryan Fitzpatrick here on the Rich Eisen Show, fresh back from Super Bowl 59. So did you go home or did you watch it there? Did you watch the game in person?
So third year in a row for me, I've called the game for Sky Sports, and the way that they do it when they air it over in the UK, they do the American broadcast, and then in lieu of commercials, there's analysis.
Okay.
And so I've really enjoyed it 3 years in a row. And this year I did it with Neil Reynolds, who I've done it with every year.
Yes.
And Ndamukong Suh, who I didn't know very well. I just knew him as a player. And I got to tell you, I absolutely hated him as a player. He was mean. He was dirty. He hit hard. He stomped on me multiple times. He kneed me in the head a few times. But what a delightful human being. I don't know if you know him at all, but he's
been here.
I was shocked. I was shocked. He was great.
I know. Ryan, he's been here. First of all, what a monstrously large human he is. That's number one. Like you can't.
Well, let me say this. Speaking of the random run-ins,
Yes.
First night in New Orleans, I'm going to a dinner with some Amazon folks, and I look in one of the restaurant windows, and it's Vita Vea. Well, I was teammates with Vita Vea, and it was a glass door, so I started doing a dance for Vita, and then I look, and he's having dinner with Ndamukong Suh. I wonder how much those two ate at that meal. But it was those were two large human beings. But sorry, I interrupted.
I'm just assuming there was no gluten-free option for that meal, Ryan. I'm just throwing that out there. Just to, you never know. But Ndamukong is. We even spoke to him here because he was so gentle, and I basically asked him like, when you played, did something just come over you? And he kind of said, yeah, like that's the sort of guy that he was, and I love that you got to work with him. And unfortunately, there probably had to be a lot of times where you were tap dancing because the game wasn't much of a game on Sunday night. Were you stunned by the way it was all playing out on Sunday night?
The Eagles, I think other than head coach and quarterback, they're more talented at every position. So that was certainly going to be an option in the game. It was fun watching it with Suh because he was a part of the Philly roster a couple years ago in the Super Bowl, but he was also part of that Tampa roster that beat up on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And so just, talking with him throughout the game of like, I've seen this before. I lived this. We got to him early. We got to him, affected him. And you just saw from the jump. I thought the two big plays early were two of those quick passes that the Chiefs completed. DeJean tackled right away, and then Quinion Mitchell tackled the dude right away. And they've supplemented their run game with that all year long. And it was like, uh-oh, if they're going to be all over us and this isn't going to work, then what are we going to do? And it was amazing to see how they were able to get after Patrick with that 4-man rush. And Patrick, his pocket presence might be the best in the game right now, but you could see it really affected him. And there were some times where he was stepping up maybe when he didn't need to. And there were obviously a lot of times where he was under heavy duress and couldn't do much about it. But it was pretty impressive performance by the Eagles.
Yeah, walk me through what happens to a quarterback when that happens, where your protection is breaking down and you realize, uh-oh, they're only sending 4 and they're in my lap. What is that?
Yeah, hard thing is when they're only sending 4, that means there's 7 guys in coverage. And the way the Eagles do it, their eyeballs are on the quarterback. So if you're trying to get the ball out quicker and you're throwing with anticipation, if those guys are looking at you, it makes your job more difficult. And then the second thing being, as a quarterback, that clock just starts to speed up. If you're thinking, okay, normally I've got 3 seconds to throw and I feel comfortable, and all of a sudden, maybe it goes down to 2.5, but in your mind, it's gone to 2 seconds. I've got to hit my back, make a decision, and throw, or else. And I point to one play at the beginning of the second half. Mahomes had Xavier Worthy streaking down the field. They had exactly what they wanted, wide open, and he stepped up. And he stepped up because he had already been hit numerous times in the game, but he kind of stepped up into a sack. And if he was able to do what he would normally do, sit back there, be comfortable, and throw that ball, it was going to be a touchdown. And who knows if the game changes or not. But they obviously loved that play going into the game because they ran it again in the second half and hit Worthy for 50 yards. But those are the little things that happen during a game that can really affect a quarterback. And for me, I might have been higher than anybody in the stadium in terms of where we were sitting. And I absolutely love being up there. You can see everything. So it was pretty cool.
Ryan Fitzpatrick here on the Rich Eisen Show. When Thursday Night Football saw Philadelphia this year, it was that home date against Washington, and Jaden Daniels was obviously already Jaden Daniels and was clearly the only impediment to the Eagles winning a division title. And the Eagles needed a 20-point fourth quarter and 2 touchdowns from Saquon to pull that thing out. And if I'd told you when Saquon left that set after the fans were chanting, thank you to the Giants, when you were doing your post game that night on Prime Video, Ron, if I told you that those were the Super Bowl champs and going away, they were going to be Super Bowl champs, you would have said what at that point?
I believe you. And, I wasn't as high. Andrew Whitworth, all season, he's been in my ear. This is the most talented team in football. This is the most talented team. And look, if you look at their roster, and especially in the trenches, which is what all the big boys like to talk about, are absolutely dominant. Probably the best offensive line, probably the best defensive line in football. But then you scratch your head as you're watching these guys. Okay, but they also have 2 of the best receivers in football. All right, they've got the best running back in football. All right, they've got a quarterback who is, you put him where you want. There's a lot of controversy over that, but a quarterback that's getting paid and is probably a top 10 quarterback in football. So you're sitting there going, A, how do they have this much money to spread around? And B, how is Howie Roseman not winning GM of the year every single year for the roster she's been assembling?
It is that simple when you think about it. But wouldn't you put Hurts top 5 now? I mean, in all seriousness, guy's made the Super Bowl twice. He's made he's the first guy in 18 quarterbacks to make it back to the Super Bowl after losing one. Then he wins it. He's made the playoffs every single year. He's been a full-time starter. That's 4 in a row. He's won 45 regular season games, 4 playoff appearances, 2 Super Bowls, winning 1. Those are the same numbers as Mahomes in his first 4 years, with the exception of 4 fewer regular season wins. Mahomes had 49 in his first 4 seasons as a starter. And I know Allen and Mahomes and Lamar and Burrow are 4 guys that I think you would name as top 5 off the top of your head. Why not throw Hurts in this mix right now?
Oh, Rich, you want to get me in trouble.
I don't wish to. But
it's just such a sensitive subject. I think, the top 4 are the top 4. I completely agree with the list that you threw out there, and I don't know that anybody would disagree with that list. I think in order to be a top 5er, you've got to be picked up and be able to be dropped in any system and be dynamic, elite, and still be a top 5 quarterback. I think with Jalen Hurts, he is in a system that completely matches and marries his skill set. And so I think everything that he does is highlighted in this system, much like with Tua, much like with Brock Purdy. So if these guys play well and they have good pieces around them, they're in that conversation. Jalen Hurts obviously winning a Super Bowl, the performance he had in the last Super Bowl, which I think doesn't get talked about enough, even though he had the fumble, he's played his best in the biggest moments. And so a lot of credit to him. I don't want it to come off as a slight to him. I just don't have him in the same category as those other guys.
So who's 5?
It's hard. Fives are rotate. It's rotating. 5 through 9 are just rotating depending on the week and depending on the year.
I guess, you know what, Goff would be in that conversation. I mean, you put Herbert, although Herbert, we're waiting. I mean, Hurts is a winner in a way that, you know,
Hurts, Herbert,
we haven't.
Goff, Stafford. I mean, you start to freak Jaden Daniels. The problem with this game is you start to forget a few people, then everybody gets upset. But it's like from the last year, Baker's probably in that conversation too with the way that he played. So, I just think it's a revolving door, maybe between 5 and 10 of the way guys are playing.
Well, and I also see, I guess, the Flintstones sort of Grand Poobah Bills lid over your left shoulder there behind you. Do you think the Bills in any way, shape, or form can take something away from the Eagles' Super Bowl 59 win and say, okay, this is the way we're going to beat Mahomes. This is the way we're going to make sure Mahomes doesn't even make it to the Super Bowl anymore, based on the way that he just didn't make it to the Super Bowl podium, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most impressive thing and what everybody is looking at after that performance is, gosh, that D-line matters. Those four and being able to generate a rush without having to blitz guys is a big deal. And so you see that's what the Eagles have invested in over and over and over again. And you ask, how can they lose Fletcher Cox and be better on the defensive line? And they didn't wait. They got Fletcher, but they brought in other young guys, Davis and Carter, and he kind of helped groom them, and then he stepped away and they're ready for their moment and their role. So I think looking at where you're investing your first round draft picks and your second round draft picks is really important. And if you look at historically Howie Roseman, there's a pattern to what he does. And the amount of guys that he's drafted on defense early has been really impressive and usually has come to pay off.
All right, Ryan, appreciate it. Give me the number of Super Bowls you think the Eagles can win over the next 5 years. What do you think?
I mean, 3. I think they're set up to do it. So let's put the number at 3. The interesting thing with the landscape is if you look at the AFC has all these quarterbacks, right? And the NFC, Jaden Daniels certainly emerging, but you would say probably that they're a little bit behind in terms of the top tier quarterbacks. And so you're looking at the NFC going, man, Detroit just lost a couple of coaches. They'll be healthier next year, but Philly's really got an opportunity here to make a run and to get into this Super Bowl multiple times in the next 5 years.
Ryan, really appreciate your time, certainly over the season. If you're in LA, come in here, and if not, I'd love to just keep checking in on you to get your thoughts on what's going on in the draft and the combine and free agency, and whether you've been, awestruck or touched on the shoulder by somebody that that's been on this program, and we can maybe help foster a relationship with. We're here for you. That's what we're saying.
Rich, thank you. I really appreciate that.
You got it. Rich. You got it. That's Ryan Fitzpatrick. Everybody check out his pod with Andrew Whitworth. And, of course, always fun checking out the gang on Thursday Night Football on Prime Video right here on the Rich Eisen Show. There goes Ryan Fitzpatrick, everybody.
And don't forget, he gave us a great fantasy name. Finger Gunned by Costner.
Finger Gunned by Costner.
Great fantasy name.
Okay. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.